Hello everyone, it is time to tune up that band and be ready for another sweet Chinwag, sweet Chinterview as part of our Being Proud series. Once again, looking to explore LGBTQIA plus identities through the lens of wrestling and online media. This week, we are joined by the amazing Brandon Hamilton. Brandon Hamilton is a US radio personality and ring announcer for Wrestlers Lab Alchemy, which features some amazing LGBT plus talent, such as MV Young, who is the current champion over there. We are so happy for Brandon to be joining us, and we hope you enjoy. This week, we are joined by the lovely Brandon Hamilton. Brandon, how are you doing? And thank you for joining us.
I am doing so well, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Cool. So we'll be getting off of our first question. And as ever with this series, we would like to ask, what does it mean to you to represent the LGBT plus community, both in wrestling or in radio, which is your other working area?
Well, that was a loaded question. When I thought about this initially, I was having a hard time thinking about the idea of like representing people, because at first it was really just about representing myself, and selfishly, I think that's why anybody gets in the entertainment business. You go into business because you think you're great. That's why anybody does this. But as I've become more comfortable with myself and been sharing a lot of my experience with people, I've been getting messages from people that I just never thought I would be the kind of person to receive. And this is not meant to like fan myself or anything, but I had somebody from my high school saying, hey, I remember seeing you in a show and you did X, Y, and Z. And that really touched me. And that really stood out to me because of, how you carried yourself in this performance. Or I remember, or somebody seeing me do something else. When I was in high school, I did a show where I was a character in drag, which is what I'm referring to here. I was a character. It's a show called Charlie's Aunt. It's an old English play. It's really silly. Anyway, it was a big deal because I was a kid and I had to put on drag and stuff. And anyway, I recently mentioned it online and I was like, this was a moment for me as a young person feeling like I was able to express myself in a way that I didn't think I was always able to. And I didn't think it was a big deal because nobody from my school came to see it. And a couple of people were like, hey man, I saw that show. It was huge. Thank you for doing that, because I saw it was okay for someone who looks and passes as a man to be dressed as a woman or can act in this certain way on stage. And that really impacted me lately. So now I'm looking at my role in wrestling through that lens a little more and realizing that there are people who see myself and other, wrestlers and other talent and other people in the industry who do live their lives like very openly and are very sharing, the very personal aspects of themselves with the world. And I don't know, it means a lot to me now because I just want kids and people to know that just once you really figure out who you want to be, like everything just becomes so much easier.
Oh yeah.
Things just fall into place in a very strange way where you realize there was so much self-sabotage happening and other things and other parameters you were putting around yourself because you thought you couldn't wear pearls. It's as simple as that. Like you've convinced yourself you couldn't do this. So you set up all these walls. And then when you start knocking down those walls, you can see the other people who also want to be knocking down those walls, and they see you and go, well, shit, man, if that guy can do it, great, I maybe can do it too. And that's what I think is really big about it. So that's where I see myself. I see myself now as a person who, and I'm sorry, this is a very long-winded ramble. I really see myself now as the kind of person who, when it comes to representing the LGBTQ plus community, I just see myself as like another one of those very vocal people who just wants everyone to be comfortable with who they are. And that's the most important thing. Once you reach that level where you accept yourself and are able to accept yourself in front of everybody that you've ever met in your life and people you don't even know, I'm so proud of you, because that's so difficult. And I just hear it from me right now. I'm so proud of you when you cross that bridge, because it was so hard for me. It was so hard for lots of people I know. And I think it's a wonderful thing to be even put in that category.
No, I think that really is amazing though, because in the time where I've spoken to people, I've always described it as like taking a weight out of a bag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
And it's like all of a sudden, it's like afterwards, it's just like, oh wow, everything now seems quite a bit easier.
It's, like little things where I, for the first time in my life, am really like actively thinking about the food that I eat and taking care of myself and wanting to treat myself better. And I absolutely attribute it to becoming more publicly like out and discussing myself and allowing the character of Brandon the Ham Hamilton to be this really exaggerated expression of all these feelings that I've had to bury for so long. Having that outlet, I feel, has really had such a really positive impact because, like you said, a huge weight gets lifted off of you, and you're like, it's almost like you kind of like yawn and stretch, like, this is who okay, I'm here now. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Here we are.
Yep. That then leads me into my next question, which is, for you, do you think that either being in wrestling or maybe even being in radio or theater, as you said before, has influenced or changed the way that you look at presenting yourself or presenting your identity?
Oh, absolutely. Wrestling specifically. I was a stand-up comedian and I didn't feel the need to I always talked about being a drag comedian, but I never had like the strength or courage to really do it because I think that takes, comedy's hard enough. And then to add that extra layer of it is even more difficult. And so I definitely attribute wrestling to it because, a lot of the elements of my character that I've been that have really come forward over the past, few months have been a direct result of, being in the pandemic and, a lot of self-examination like we all went through. And I had the opportunity to do my first show back with Wrestlers Laboratory. And, it was a great day, great production day. And I hadn't quite figured out where I wanted to go, but that was when I recognized that, like, oh man, maybe this isn't enough. I'm not doing something enough. And then I went to do another show for another company, and that's when I put on the pearls and the ascot and the jacket. I started looking at myself and feeling like, wrestling could be the outlet for you. This could be what you've really been missing, because not that I wouldn't want to wear jewelry and ring stuff in my everyday life. I would. I just don't necessarily feel like doing it every single day. But I love that there's a space now for me to go as over the top as I want to. And I will not be the most over the top person in the area, which is one of the funny things about wrestling is that no matter how ridiculous and insane I can think of something, there is somebody else who's doing it like 10 times crazier. And I love it. It's magical. I love it.
Yeah, you're always surrounded by really over the top characters.
It's the best part. And so finding my voice in that, finding a place for me in that really helped me sort of recognize, like, what? It's okay in my regular personal life to start expressing these things too. It's okay for me in conversation people to make it more clear that I'm not just like a straight man, or whatever it is. Like, it's okay for me to not just sort of pass anymore.
Yeah.
And just like, and sort of know in like my secret little like world, like, well, no, I understand I'm married to a woman, but it's one of those things where wrestling has really given me this confidence because people have seen the character now and they see the confidence that comes out of me when I have the character on. And selfishly, I will say people are drawn to that because that's what people like in wrestling characters. So me doing all my like Brandon the Ham Hamilton, oh yes, darling, and all that stuff is it's I feel so confident doing it because wrestling is evolving into a place where that's closer to the norm now than like giant beefcake jacked up. You know what I mean? Like it's closer. Over the top silly is coming back in wrestling, and I feel so happy about that like I'm glad it's helping me accentuate a lot of aspects of my personality.
That'd be amazing. You'd have been very welcome in the old school British ways.
Man, I tell you seriously, like I would have loved to because full stop, and this is not just because this is an English podcast, full stop, Monty Python is the most important thing that ever happened to me, and I would have loved to have taken all of that goofiness and all that silliness. That's where like so much of like I never thought that men dressing as women was a problem. I just didn't think that. I assumed that was just a thing that people did, and sometimes it was funny. Like I never thought about it as like anyway. So I would have loved to have been watching like Graham Chapman and Eric Idle performing, and then also gone and do a wrestling show. Like I would have loved to have been in that wheelhouse to have seen all that at the time.
So as you mentioned, you've been working with Wrestlers Lab Alchemy. I do want to ask, how has it been for you working with them, and how, or seeing them grow in profile?
It's really cool for a lot of reasons. My first show ever was with Wrestlers Laboratory. A very dear friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey man, do you think you can come and do a bit of ring announcing for us? We're doing a co-show in Rhode Island, and we just need you to do." And at the time, you know, having been a performer and all that kind of things, I thought of it like, "Oh, cool! Like, yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a fun thing to do one day." Hey guys, I did a wrestling show, and you know, I did that wrestling show. I met everyone in the locker room. There's no environment in the world like a wrestling locker room where everyone's like getting along and everyone's excited and everyone's on the same page with each other. It's like theater camp where everyone's just excited to do Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Everyone's just so excited to do the big number at the end of Act 2. And so from there I was like, I love this. And so seeing them grow and the talent that they found and the eye for talent that they have, the people, you know, who are champions, were champions, challengers, new teams, all kinds of stuff, that has been really cool to see. And I feel like they were, and again, this isn't just because these are people that I work with closely. I really felt like they were like ahead of the curve in that they foresaw a real shift in the tone of what wrestling shows were going to be like. And, you know, just a few minutes ago, I made the joke, like, it's not all like brawny beefcake and all that kind of stuff, because it's not anymore. It really isn't. No, like that changed really about 10, 15 years ago. That really changed. And just knowing, you know, how, you know, some of the thought process behind the way they put things together, and knowing that for them, it isn't so much about like, big slam, audience goes, everyone happy. You know, everybody at the lab thinks about how are we going to tell the story across everything that we're doing. Like, what the story is what's important. And as a theater person, for me, that was such a big deal. So anyway, seeing them grow and become such becoming a recognized name and people wanting to work with them and all kinds of stuff, I mean, that just fills my heart. It really does. It makes me so happy, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. I really, you know, hope to like be a forever part of the lab. Like that's like a plan of mine for my existence is to be associated with them, because I love them, and they really care about the people they work with, and that's what's important.
Yeah, that's absolutely important, and it is so amazing to see them go from strength to strength to really take take something different.
I remember telling them that I felt like, so I was a big punk rock fan for a while, and still am, and I felt like lab shows were like punk shows. I felt the vibe of, I mean, is every single band on the show like the greatest band that's ever played? No. Do they have the energy, the audacity, the rage, the blood, the sweat, and the tears that is needed to put on a good show? Hell yes, they do. So when you watch a lab show, you know, I mean, like, is every single person gonna be doing like moonsaults and backflips and all kinds of crazy combos and insane things you've never seen before? Maybe not. But what are you gonna see is you're gonna see these amazing talents putting every single thing they have out there. Every single move, every single promo, every single match is just nothing but pure blood, sweat, and tears. It's so punk rock. I love it so much.
Yeah, and it has a very raw energy.
Yeah. And Alchemy specifically came out in such a really cool, like you said, raw sort of way. Like the way Alchemy, when we were there and we were shooting it, you know, you could tell the vibe it was a cool vibe. Like we were all into it. Everything was really rad and stuff. And then, you know, when you're shooting something like that and you're there for a long time, you can sort of lose sight a little bit of what's going on, because you get really focused on finishing out the day, making sure you got all the shots, all that kind of stuff. And so seeing it all cut together, and this is a big shout to New Fear City crew. They're the guys that do all the video work for the lab, or at least for Alchemy they did. They're amazing. They cut together these just great episodes of TV. Like this is good television. Like it's just quality hey man, I got 25 minutes to kill. Sit down, boom, great TV. Like, and that's what I love about it. The focus on stories, quality performers, good quality production. You know, they're looking at the right things. You know, they're looking at lighting, cameras, what makes our stars look good. You know, those are the things that I think make the lab stand out. And they're doing all this while still being punk rock, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's especially when you say that kind of slightly different attention to detail.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like general presentation, especially when you're working on the kind of budget I could only imagine you guys are realistically working on.
I mean, yeah, like a small indie, they're a small indie fed, you know, like we're talking a shoestring budget here, but these guys have really taken the time to examine where that budget goes and make sure it's prioritized correctly. And I think that there's something to be said for any company out there when it comes to putting on a show, there's something to be said for hiring quality lighting people and quality production people, because you can hire the greatest talent, in-ring talent in the world, and they can come and put on a 5-star match. But if that match looks like garbage, no one's going to watch it. And that's
welcome to the problem that we tell so many indie
I tell
UK
people all
promotions.
the time. Having a background in production, you know, I work in radio, I worked in theater, I've worked on movies. I'm sorry, now I'm plugging myself obnoxiously, but having been in production for so long, I really truly, when I go to shows, one of the things I do is check out what they're running and what they're using. What kind of cameras are we running? Or what type of lighting are you using? You know, and not to be step on toes or anything, but if the conversation turns around to it and I can, you know, be like, hey man, you ever think about doing a little bit of this? You know, or be like, hey man, you ever check out Ray's lighting? That kid's great. That guy knows what he's doing. You know, just to sort of like help people realize that if you want your stars and your matches to look good, you have to make them look good. It is not magically going to happen. It's not. It's just not. You know, you don't got to get Roger Deakins to come out and shoot 1917, but you also like don't have to get a 13-year-old with an iPhone.
You know? God, do I know that from watching some shows online.
And I feel like when that sort of happens, and this you know, and this is definitely not a shot at any particular company or anything like that. I just feel like it's sort of like insulting to the wrestlers, man. Like those guys are out there putting out those men, women, everybody who goes out there and wrestles puts on this great physical performance. And I think it's your duty as a promotion to capture that performance correctly, have it readily available, and so that and allow the talent access to it so that they can share it with people so they can get more work. That's a whole other thing about
that's a whole other discussion.
Whole other problem.
But so many other people.
But for real, guys, I know this podcast took a sidebar, but production notes.
Yes,
make sure
production is important.
This is the key takeaway. Oh man, but yeah. So circling back around to the question you asked me.
Yeah.
Watching the lab prosper across all of these things we just talked about is truly phenomenal. It's wonderful to see. You really hope to see people you care about succeed like this. It's something that anybody would want.
With working with the lab and seeing the role that I think that is playing for some people, how do you think that wrestling is becoming more queer friendly?
You know, I thought a lot about this question only because you're not the first person to ask me this, like just in passing and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's certainly becoming what I love about it is that it's becoming such a queer friendly place that we're all very loudly now being like, oh, you're not down with queer people being in wrestling? Oh, sounds like you can get the fuck out of here. Yeah. like we are so much, it's so much less even than it was like 10 years ago being like, hey, can you just like not be a jerk about it, please? I understand that you feel X, Y, or Z, but just be quiet. Like instead of like doing that, we are all now so vocal. People like MV Young, Effie, Allison Catch. These people are all out there. Edith Surreal. These people are all out there loudly sharing their stories, sharing their experience, and making sure that people understand like this is not going away. This is what wrestling is now. It is all your good old boy nonsense is over. I'm sorry. It just is across the board, not just in wrestling. Your good old boy shit is out. Like, we're done with it as a society.
The time has gone for that.
For real. You guys had 200 something years, you enough time in charge, okay, that you can take a walk, okay?
Yeah.
And I think that the lab being a home for a lot of people to safely express themselves, and I know that the lab has a big focus on inclusion and safety and wanting people to feel like they're represented and heard and all kinds of stuff. That's a big personal focus of the people who are in charge there. I just know this, and I think that because of that, that's how we are it's becoming a more, a well-known promotion and stuff. Like, we are making a space where it's a punk rock vibe, it's good production vibe, we're making quality content, we're here for everybody, we want everyone on earth to be able to enjoy the product. Like, this is not exclusatory. We're not going to go and grandstand and pretend like we're the only people who have this division of wrestling, and anyone else who could possibly ever want to do it can come here for it. Like, none of that nonsense. I think the lab and places like it are actively, I'm sorry, Fear the Gay Agenda was a show that just happened in Florida.
Yep.
Huge show. Awesome. Featuring MSP, who are my favorite. I love them so much. Effie was on it. MV was, so many great people. Like, that's the direction we're all moving in. And they're having death matches. MV murdered a bunch of twinks. Like yep. there's just like, it's just like we're moving in this great direction where a lot of the theatricality that comes from, queer performance art is happily marrying wrestling in a beautiful way. And that's what I think things like the lab do and what the future holds. So I think it's great. I think it's a great time to be a queer person in wrestling because we're all here. We're all here to support you. We love you.
Yeah. It's always been so great, especially for me coming through in the last year, just to kind of see queer wrestling kind of say, like, this is our space now. We're here. We're not going anywhere. Just deal with it.
Yeah. This is the equivalent of if Napoleon actually conquered Russia.
Yeah,
that's what I call this. This is the equivalent of that. This is years of strife and battling and fighting our way into a territory that was sworn to, you could never do it. You can't get it. What, Russia? Come on, And here you are, hacking yourself away and actually doing it. Like the one campaign nobody could ever do. A bunch of queer people got together and were like, yeah, but we're gonna do this. And
we're going to do it anyway.
We're going to do it anyway. And it's the dedication to saying, like, we will not hide we're not going to not be part of this anymore. Like, we've always been part of this. We've never not been part of this. For Christ's sakes, Pat Patterson is like the original Intercontinental Champion. Like, we're part of the history of this industry. And to sit and pretend like we're not is just stupid at this point. It's 2021. Get over it. Like, we're here, forever. We're not going anywhere.
The game has changed now.
For real. It truly has. And I'm so happy about that.
I would just like to say one aside question, just because it's something that you brought up. A UK wrestler we recently spoke to, and when I was speaking to them, Visage, we spoke about how, spoke partially about how we've always seen wrestling partially adjacent to drag. I wanted to ask you about that.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. It's the exact same vibe. Exact same vibe. It is. I think, like, when you look at characters from like your Macho Mans and stuff like that, it is the exact same thing as a drag character. It's just that instead of it being makeup and maybe like singing a Dionne Warwick song, it's, jacked up muscles and let me tell you something, it's that instead. And it requires the same level of over-the-top performance, understanding of the character you're playing, where that character fits in the overall hierarchy of everything you're doing. But more than that, like it's just like, I've always looked at drag and drag performance as a very, over-the-top and eccentric version of this, like, person, like, sort of like what I said before about my character, of this personality. Like, it's eccentric, over the top, crazy personality. That's all wrestling is.
Yeah, because that was always the information that I always remember people saying, which is like the best wrestling characters are just you turned up to like 110%.
Absolutely. That's why I think the ham now is becoming, people are starting to respond to it and stuff more, because I finally allowed myself just to crank it up to 11 and break the nozzle off.
Yeah. This is just like the purest representation of you.
100%. It is. You know what it is? I recently rewatched one of my all-time favorite movies, The Birdcage, and Nathan Lane's character Albert in that movie was such an very, very important person to me in film as growing up and stuff. But this was the first time I'd watched it since I really like transformed and put on the pearls and really discovered what the ham was. And I started crying during that, just crying, uncontrolled. I had 3 or 4 different scenes in that movie. I was crying so hard, especially the scene when Albert tries to put on a suit and he's still wearing like pink purple socks and he's just not passing a straight. There was anyway, I just it was this, I could see myself in that. And I can also see how like wrestling is just like that. It is this big, crazy drag show that just happens to involve power bombs, and whether or not everybody's in an exaggerant over the top dress doesn't matter, because it is the same vibe. It's the same environment.
It's just kind of how, even if you aren't that crazy over the top person, that's just kind of how the industry is.
Yeah. The industry in itself, and that's what makes people who aren't over the top great parts of the industry. When Tommaso Ciampa was coming out to no music and being quiet and stuff like that, awesome, because everyone else is insane. When everyone else is insane and you're the straight man of the scene, awesome. Like that's how you tell a story.
Yeah. There's always you'll always find a way to make yourself stand out.
Yeah. If you when you understand what you bring as a performer, and so going back to watching the Birdcage, seeing Albert and stuff like that, like now that I see what the ham can represent and bring to it, that to me is is important now, and that's what I'm striving to do now. That's what I'm excited about when it comes to the future and what I continue to do and grow as a character. I'm excited now to feel that I've now embraced so many of these things, and I have a place like the lab that is welcoming, that I can learn and grow and express and I have people involved who work there that I can talk to and ask, hey, what do you think about this? How do we feel?
That's always so important to have people to bounce stuff off of.
If there's another thing apart from good production being important, I also want to say, folks, if you're in the locker room, just, I think everyone should be able to talk to each other and give each other good feedback, positive working feedback with each other. It's the only way we're all going to get better. So I've fortunately been in a lot of locker rooms where everyone's been really cool and nice with each other. And I love that. I would say like 99.99999% of everyone I've ever met has been rad. And I just want everyone to know that you should be able to be like, hey man, you had a great match. And them not be like, oh, you Mark. Oh. It's like, no, I'm a fellow performer.
I just want advice, please.
Yeah, right. I'm just a fellow performer being like, wow, that was cool. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for going out there and put on a good show. Because now the show is better because you did that. You did that. All of us look good.
Yeah. So then just finally finishing up here, what is your message to any members of the LGBTQ plus community that feel they might not be welcome in wrestling?
Well, as I said a few times throughout my rambling, you are absolutely welcome. You are so welcome. You don't even know how welcome you are. That's what it is. And I understand that for a lot of people, it can be difficult to, process and see themselves in different scenarios with different people in different environments, especially if you've been in the closet or kept these parts of yourself hidden. But I just want you to hear it from me, just as some random guy in Connecticut. When you are ready to fully embrace yourself, we are all going to be here with open arms to fully embrace you, tell you that we love you, tell you that we're here for you, whatever you need. We will happily make this a community that you can be a part of as well. So if you see something and you feel like it's missing from what we're doing, let us know. And I think that the wrestling community now is at a position where we are more than willing to hear what you have to say and to understand what you have to say and to try and rectify, if you see a problem in what we're doing, because it's wrestling and entertainment should be for everybody. It should not be limiting. It should be for everyone.
Absolutely.
Everyone should be able to enjoy whatever it is they want to enjoy, be it wrestling, video games, movies, bad sitcoms, whatever it is, you should be able to enjoy it. And so all I can say is if you ever need anything, if I'm always here. I love you all very much. My thing is, I've always said to people when I used to do stand-up, I would end every one of my stand-up sets with, thank you all for coming. I love you all for your own unique and special reason. And that was, it's like a bit, but yeah. I really mean it though. Like everyone has their own thing that's wonderful about them. And, that's important that that somebody out there, even if you never met me and I've never met you, I still love you for it. And thank you for being that person. Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute joy talking to you.
It was an absolute pleasure. This was such a gem. Thank you so much. I'm sorry if I rambled a little bit here.
We readily welcome rambling here.
Excellent. Anytime you want to ramble and ham on, you let me know. How about that?
That sounds amazing. Just quickly before we finish off, where can our lovely viewers find you?
Oh, goodness. You can find me all over the Brandon the Ham Hamilton is readily available to you at the Ham Tweets on Twitter and at the Brandon Hamilton on Instagram. That's at the Ham Tweets on Twitter and at the Brandon Hamilton on Instagram. Guys, shoot me a message or whatever. If you want to talk or whatever, like I said, I'm here for everybody. If you're having a rough patch maybe or something going on in your life, whatever like that, Ham's here. Ham loves you.
Well, this has been the Sweet Chinwag. This has been Brandon the Ham Hamilton. And thank you very much all for joining us. Thank you so much.